1992 already, wow, which at the time of recording was 27 years ago for fans of existential dread. It was the year John Major got the Conservatives their fourth successive term of government. More peas, dear? Bleak as hell Chernobyl for the under-10s, Animals of Farthingwood started on the telly, with all the hero mulleted foxes and creature death that come with it. Vinyl started to disappear from shop shelves in favour of cassettes and CDs in a time known as the non-pretentious music purchase era. Ghostwatch appeared on Halloween, which sent waves and waves of "I knew it was fake when Craig Charles appeared" conversations through early 1990s schoolyards. Finally, Snap! Released Rhythm is a Dancer, which of course featured the eternal, earnest line, "I'm serious like cancer when I say that rhythm is a dancer." Wonderful lyricsmanship there. In gaming, the CD revolution continued apace, with Philips releasing their, well, at least you tried, CDI multimedia platform. Atari dropped all its support for its ageing home systems, and Commodore released the last low-cost Amiga computer, the 1200, before filing for bankruptcy in the following year. The CD32 had still to come though. We'll cover that next time. Yay! There was a lot of action happening in courtrooms, with Codemasters and Galob Toys taking on Nintendo of America about the legality of their Game Genie cheat device. Not only them, but Sega were getting all uppity with accolade for their reverse engineer tinkering of the Mega Drive. And Atari and Nintendo again were sparring over similar issues. Oh, and it's the year that Night Trap and Mortal Kombat came out, and that would lead to more legal shenanigans. Again, something we'll probably cover in the next year's instalment. As for the games themselves, it was another banner year. It was the year of Sonic Tuesday, of course, as Sega refined the formula of the first game, added a two-player mode, and yet still failed to make my list. Mortal Kombat was also released, but again, it failed to rip out my still pulsing, twitching heart and crush it, as, you know what, it's a subjective list of my favourite games of the year 1992, and those two particular games do not cut my own particular brand of mustard. I do understand, though, that they are very good if you're into those sort of things. There will be some predictable titles in here, some not so predictable. All that matters is that the games came out this year on their original format, even if I played them sometime later. If they had a sufficiently different conversion, then they qualify. If not, then hit the road, Jack. Some of the games showing up in these honourable mentions lists are well regarded and well reviewed, but didn't quite click with me, such as the aforementioned pair, or games that I loved but weren't quite good enough to make the top 10. So that's a long spiel to just say, shut up, is my opinion, listen to it. And now we cut to my personal cream. Not that cream, that's disgusting. I hated Another World. I absolutely despised its Dragon's Lair but bug ugly gameplay, and so when presented with a similar, though slightly better looking, pseudo-sequel from Delphine Software, I recoiled like I was touching something that was deeply unpleasant and maybe once food in the washing up bowl. But then I played it. much more forgiving than Another World, and blended with a mere dash of Prince of Persia's gameplay, made Flashback an absolute delight. Yes, it's still a memory test of sorts, but no soul will finish Flashback on their first attempt. However, when you make an error on Flashback, you can sometimes feel it's your fault. This was not the case with Another World. The story of the game is a compulsive one, shown in cinematic cutscenes, and it builds to an exciting, otherworldly conclusion. While the Amiga is where we had our first encounter with Flashback, the very best iteration was almost certainly on the Sega Mega Drive, thanks to the lack of loading and, of course, its 3-button control system. Desert Strike was an obvious nod to the war just a year prior, which seems a little bit on the nose in retrospect. Is it too soon? I guess we may find out should Electronic Arts decide to revive the series for no-deal Brexit strike in 2020. And if they steal my idea, I will head to their headquarters in California with my new blue passport, of course, and scream on their doorstep. Desert Strike sees you as a helicopter pilot sent on various sorties and missions across the deserts of the Gulf. Its isometric perspective is reminiscent of those classic TLL and Cyclone titles on the old 8-bits. Desert Strike requires just as much deft control and targeting as those two games, along with forward planning when it comes to fuel and ammunition to get the job done. It's very difficult, but also a very compulsive play with a distinct look and feel that makes it stand out in a crowded 16-bit shoot-'em-up market. Up yours, not Saddam. Nintendo were just being unfair at this stage. They already had invented such iconic characters as the Mario cast, Zelda and Link, Samus Aran and Donkey Kong. All of these, and the games they were in, were system shifters on their own. Not only that, but they were synonymous with third-party characters such as Simon Belmont and Mega Man as well. They didn't need another world-class platform series or another simply designed but charming character. Yet, here we are, as HAL Laboratories' Kirby ticks both of those criteria. Kirby is a cute pink, or green here obviously, blob who can suck in his enemies and spit them out as projectiles. It was purposely designed by creator Masahiro Sakurai to be a simple action game for those unfamiliar with the genre, and it works very well at doing that indeed. It's very much a pick-up and play Game Boy title. Those seeking more of a challenge can try out the hard mode and lower the health settings of Kirby. While we wouldn't quite get the enemy power stealing capabilities that the later Kirby games had quite yet, Kirby's Dream Land was pure, enjoyable gameplay that was perfect for its initial home, the little white wonder itself, the Game Boy. In a packed room of Nintendo iconic characters, the pink puffball still inflates himself up to this day as one of its most beloved. Following on from Street Fighter II's successes the previous year, competitors were keen to ape the style and success of Capcom's pugilistic crown jewel blockbuster. SNK had tried the previous year with Fatal Fury, but its feeble lineup of 3 playable fighters and underutilised 2-plane combat simply couldn't compare to Street Fighter II's array of memorable fighters and multitude of fighting techniques. After 10 months back at the drawing board, SNK returned with more attack buttons, dashes, better use of its dual plane system, stage hazards, taunts, desperation moves, and paired it with gameplay that, whilst not quite on par with Capcom's title as yet, was certainly the most playable alternative. SNK went back to the drawing board with the character lineup as well, with some clever dick at SNK realising that the best way to get the attention of teenage boys is to copy Chun-Li, get to show off more flesh on her big old thighs there, and stick a couple of very animated chest beefers on her in the character of Mai. Bombast. No other word sums up a game as completely as bombast when paired with Contra 3. From the first play, it's an absolute assault, not just on the player, but on their senses. It's a relentless charge into everything Konami can throw at you, and using the power of the Super Nintendo to do it, like a sort of big grey catapult. The brooding apocalyptic warzone atmosphere, the incredible set pieces, the punishing difficulty, level variations and thumping soundtrack make for one of the very best platform shooters of the generation. With both this and Castlevania 4, Konami were showing that they meant business, eking every trick out of Mama Nintendo's box of magic. It's not perfect. There are some view from above sections which, while making use of the Mode 7 chip, aren't very welcome, and the difficulty is controller gnawing at times. But overall, it's in the pantheon of legendary Super Nintendo classics. Welcome there. There are gold statues everywhere. Look at Mario's moustache, made of bronze. And lo, a genre was born. Scratch that. The genre was born. A genre that is still going strong today and has given us some of the very best and most successful games in history. While there were first-person 3D shooters before, Romero and Cormac's technical wizardry and game design certainly makes Wolfenstein the granddaddy of them all, and helped turn the genre into the world's most popular for decades to come. The movement is smooth, it has decent control, and it has a simple and effective conceit of walking through a big old castle and shooting Nazis in their stupid faces. What isn't there to like? I can only imagine Cyber Hitler, though, must have seen a special offer on navy blue brick paint at B&Q one weekend when he wasn't working, you know, doing all those terrible things he did. Not just satisfied with making the Super Nintendo version of Final Fight look ridiculous the previous year, Sega came gunning for the arcade original with beefed up sprites and a much deeper moveset. Absolutely stunning graphics and a Koshiro soundtrack close to the original in terms of its quality contribute to a sequel that looks like it's been in development for 5 years, not just one. Streets of Rage 2 is arguably still atop the quality tree when it comes to home scrolling beat 'em ups some 27 years later. I'll still maintain though that Skate is very silly though. The Jar Jar Binks of scrolling beat 'em ups. A 15-year-old on rollerblades is not a cool character to use in a fighting game. I'd even take the kangaroo over him. My first introduction to the turn-based role-playing game. Shining Force never had the story depth of its Final Fantasy counterpart, but come on, Zelda was hardly War and Peace either, was it? Shining Force, I believe, is allowed some leeway in this field anyway, given that the player's party ends up with 30 members by the game's end. Normally, with role-playing games, I'm absolutely all about the story and find the battles a bit of an annoying intrusion on me discovering that story. Here, though, I think the reverse is true. The story's okay, but it's the epic battles between two armies proving to be a real scratcher of heads at times. But there's usually multiple ways to solve the issue and come out on top. The game is long, at times challenging, but always extremely playable. So if you fancy yourself as General Patton, but want to command jellyfish things, hawkmen, centaur knights, and motorised armadillo tanks, maybe this is up your street. And if it isn't, well, it damn well should be. What a hoot this game is. In the arcade at the time, football games were doing silly stuff like this and this. So soccer games were in need of just a little smidgen of realism, and they didn't get it with Sensible Soccer either, and jolly good show too. Sensible Soccer is a gem because it's forged on pure pick up and play fun. The purest enjoyment of any football game, nay any sports game ever, can be found in these 22 little Lego-esque men punting around banana shots on this barely detailed pitch. In a time where fingers rush to sprain themselves to perform the many tricks, shots and variant passes in FIFA and Pro Evolution, there's a lot to be said for Sensible Soccer's one button does all. If football is indeed a religion, then the simple grace of Sensi Soccer is indeed a church for us all. It's a competitive year, alright, 1992, but ultimately the sheer genius of Mario's first time behind a wheel wins out for me. Starting out as an experiment to make a two-player F-Zero, it was found that the Super NES hardware would struggle to cope with courses the size of F-Zero's in a two-player mode. So the courses were shrunk down, the speed slowed down, and the characters and worlds of Super Mario were introduced. And we blended all this magic together and ended up with a lovely little pie with little wheels on it. We got the world's best-selling racing series and a whole new subgenre on its own right. Has Super Mario Kart aged well? Perhaps not as well as some of the later games, or even some of the games on this list, but I think of any of the games on any of the best of the year lists I've done so far, this is the one that I've played the most. Be it the Grand Prix or the battle mode, that battle mode is glorious by the way. No other game captivated me or my friends of an evening quite like the original Mario Kart. Yes, there was rubber banding at play, but it made every contest exhilarating. However, the purple shell went too far, and this game didn't have those bastard things in it yet. So stick those bastard purple joy ruiners up your bum, Shigsy, and give us a Mario Kart game without them. And that is that done, fans of 1992. And believe me, I'm as nasty as hepatitis B when I say I'll be back with 1993. Thanks, Snap, for your inspiration there. Okay, thanks, bye.